Next on Worcester News tonight, Congressman Jim McGovern visits the same spot along the border as the vice president, but has a much different reaction. Why he wants to share what he saw. Plus, 50 golf courses in 50 states in 50 days, raising money for diabetes awareness. An Ohio man ends his tour in Worcester with a very special round. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Olivia Lemmon. More on those stories in a moment, but first, a nice start to the work week, but there are some changes on the way in the next few days. Let's get a first look at our local forecasts for more.
Well, good evening to you. What a fantastic start to the work week. Low humidity on this Monday and temperatures were comfortable, very summer-like, but very pleasant through this evening too. 7 o'clock, we're at 78 degrees. A few clouds by 9 o'clock, 68, falling down into the mid-60s overnight tonight. But very, very comfortable. Dew point temperatures overnight will be in the 50s, so it's quite refreshing. Open the windows, let the fresh air in. Very subtle wind from the west-northwest overnight tonight as we hit a low of 65 degrees in Worcester, 63 in Fitchburg, some 50s in a few of the suburbs too. Tomorrow afternoon, the wind direction slowly changes. Humidity still not too much of an issue, and it looks like we'll see some mid to upper 80s across Worcester County once again. Coming up in our full forecast, though, the humidity does increase, and we get some hot temperatures. There's also a chance for some enhanced rainfall thanks to the remnants of Barry. That's going to be around Thursday. I'll show you the hour-by-hour timing and when we could be tracking a heat wave in your 10-day.
All right, thank you, Pamela. Congressman Jim McGovern visited 2 detention centers in Texas this past weekend. One of those centers was the same one Vice President Pence visited, but the two seem to have very different opinions about the conditions. Our Rosalind Flaherty joins us live now to explain. Rosalind.
Olivia, Congressman Jim McGovern posted a video on Twitter showing the conditions, saying some people haven't showered in 40 days. Meanwhile, Mike Pence says families tell him they are being well cared for.
40 days.
Massachusetts Congressman Jim McGovern took this video of a group of migrants crowded behind glass at the McAllen, Texas Border Patrol station.
You ever taken a shower for 40 days?
We haven't taken a shower for 40 days.
He was one of several Democrats who visited the detention center this weekend. By phone Monday, McGovern says he took the video to show the American people what is happening and to let them decide if it's acceptable.
Witnessed terrible overcrowding of small cells. People were telling me that the lights were kept on 24 hours a day. Difficult for me to believe that we were treating people so horrendously here in the United States of America.
Vice President Mike Pence visited the same detention center. He and McGovern have different views of what's happening behind the walls.
Every family that I spoke to told me that they were being well cared for, and different than some of the harsh rhetoric that we hear from Democrats on Capitol Hill. Our Customs and Border Protection are doing their level best to provide compassionate care.
Organizers of Worcester Socialist Alternative held a protest against the detention centers on Friday. They say the evidence is clear, but there needs to be a solution.
What's missing from both of them is a way forward. Protests aren't enough. Trump's okay with just ignoring protests. We need strike action because when we put pressure on big business puts pressure on the politicians that they own, and that's what's ultimately going to force Trump's hand.
I don't think this is something that the American people want. I think it's a very small minority of people who actually want to see humans treated this way.
Vice President Mike Pence says the answer is not more detention centers.
The real answer here is to take away the tools that human traffickers are using to entice vulnerable families.
While Congressman McGovern says Pence is spending too much time with the president.
Vice President is not telling the truth.
McGovern says this is the first time he's been to a detention center since Trump has been president. Vice President Mike Pence says it's up to Congress to act. We're live in Worcester. Rosalind Flaherty, Worcester News Tonight.
And the Trump administration announcing it will move to end asylum protections for most Central American migrants. The new rule says asylum seekers who pass through another country and do not seek asylum there will not be eligible for asylum here in the U.S. This is the administration's latest attempt to restrict the influx of migrant families coming to the United States. And President Trump is facing growing criticism over his tweet telling 4 congresswomen to, quote, go back home to fix their countries. Allison King has the latest.
Donald Trump says you should be going back to where you came from. I mean, how do you respond to that?
I mean, I think it's just really par for the course. It's another day in the world under this administration.
Ayanna Pressley says she is neither surprised nor willing to show outrage over President Trump's latest tweet.
I'm just glad that everyone is focused on and has been reminded again about who the real enemy is here. And that is the person that is fanning the flames of xenophobia and each day eroding at our humanity, our civil rights.
Pressley says she is much more focused on her work involving her constituents in the 7th District.
I've moved on, and the American people and my district need for me to move on. I don't have the time to be offended or outraged about predictable, a pattern of behavior of hateful, bigoted rhetoric from the occupant of this White House.
Many Democrats are calling Trump's tweet racist and looking to Republicans to do the same. Former Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney, now a U.S. Senator from Utah, says the 4 members of the so-called squad have views that are not consistent with his experience or building a strong America, then adds,
at the same time, I recognize that the president has a unique and noble calling to unite all Americans, regardless of our creeds or our race or the place of our national origin. And I think in that case, the president fell far short with his comments yesterday.
Would you go as far as to say racist comments?
That's all I got. Thanks.
For Worcester News Tonight, I'm Allison King.
Small central Massachusetts towns are reaping the benefits of the state's growing marijuana business. Town leaders say budgets can sometimes be difficult, but this new added revenue is a big help. Our Brittany Schaefer joins us live now from Leicester, where a retail shop opened in November. Brittany.
Olivia, the town of Leicester received $370,000 from Cultivate sales tax alone. The town manager says it's a big economic boost.
That's a lot of money.
The town of Uxbridge is experiencing an economic boost it hasn't had in decades. Selectwoman Susan Fran says it's due to the revenue they receive from the town's retail marijuana shop.
$92,000 for impact fees, and then we received $30,000 for the first quarter sales tax. This is a town which was hard hit when the mills closed, and we've had trouble, reestablishing an economic base since the 1980s. And so this is creating that economic base.
Caroline's Cannabis opened in March. Fran says Uxbridge is working on several other marijuana retail shops and cultivation sites, and next year's gains could be even greater.
We're expecting maybe $1.5 million to $2 million a year once all of these businesses are up and running. It's about 3 to 5% of our tax base is what we're looking at. And that sounds like a small number, but that's 3 to 5% of the taxes that our residents don't have to pay.
The town of Leicester is experiencing similar growth. Cultivate was one of the first 2 retail shops to open in the state last November. Town Administrator David Genero says sales have exceeded expectations.
Between the sales tax and the host community agreements, it's really a good shot in the arm for the town. We took in over $370,000 on sales tax revenue alone. Host community agreement. That one calls for $300,000 per year.
Genero says the budget is always a challenge for the small town due to limited economic growth, and this added revenue is a huge help.
Overall, this is a big increase for us. We have capital needs. We'd like to put money away into stabilization in our OPEB fund as well. There's a lot of places for it to go. We can spend it very efficiently.
Fran says the town is discussing how to spend the money, but says there are several high priority items.
We're looking at the condition of our roads, our human services. We have a growing senior population. We want them to have the services that they need. So it's really helping us out.
The city of Worcester has 15 shops and cultivation sites. They say they've received $1.1 million in revenue from marijuana. In Leicester, Brittany Schaefer, Worcester News Tonight.
A porch fire in Worcester displaces 8 residents. Firefighters responded to 50 Richmond Avenue around 1 Sunday morning. They say the fire had extended into the building and attic. Firefighters were able to put it out quickly. One woman who lives in the building says she was woken up by people banging on her door.
Kind of woke up. I was like, is this real? And then it's like, oh my God, it's real. So we came out, came out the back way. Luckily, our bedrooms are in the back of the home. And when we came out, the front of the house on the second floor was, just totally engulfed in flames.
No one was injured in the fire. The building suffered significant smoke, fire, and water damage. The cause is under investigation. The death of an Oxford man is also under investigation. The Massachusetts Fire District 7 team says he was climbing a utility pole when he was electrocuted. Neighbors discovered the man hanging from the pole on Bailey Road in Oxford. Police have not released any details of the incident. It's unclear why the man was climbing the pole. A motorcyclist fighting for his life after a serious crash in Auburn. The Auburn police chief sharing these pictures of the crash Sunday. It was the driver's 63rd birthday. We're told he's from Worcester and suffered life-threatening injuries. The preliminary investigation shows the motorcyclist is not at fault. He's listed in critical condition. An Ohio man is finishing up a 50-day golf journey in honor of his father. Pete Crozier says his dad grew up in Worcester and this was the perfect place for his last round. He's raising money for the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. Our Gretchen LaRosa joins us live now with more on his story. Gretchen.
Olivia, Pete's cross-country golf tour began on May 27th in North Carolina, and today he's wrapping it up right here in Worcester. 50 golf courses in 50 states in 50 days. Monday is the last day of Pete Crozier's journey to raise money for juvenile diabetes research.
My story starts with my dad and ends with my son. My dad died 20 years ago of a stroke with complications of type 2 diabetes. My son Gavin was diagnosed with type 1 at age 4 about 10 years ago.
Pete has traveled across the country and teed off in 49 states. Monday, Green Hill Golf Course was number 50 in 50 consecutive days.
Where I'm combining my three memories of my dad, who was a planner and a traveler and a golfer. So he would have played here 70 years ago. So kind of a circle of life feel and coming back to where it all started.
Now at age 50, Crozier says the numbers for this idea all added up and where the inspiration for 50 for Father came from.
I wanted it to be hard because diabetes is hard. And I figured if I could feel one day what my son feels every day, I'd be a better father at the end of it.
Gavin Crozier says his father's journey has made him realize anything you put your mind to is possible.
It just showed me that when you have all that passion inside you to do something, you really can get people to listen and you really can do something and make a difference.
As Pete wraps up the tour, he says he's feeling tired but is satisfied in finishing his mission.
I got to do something I love with people I love for people I love while trying to make the world a better place. How lucky am I?
Now, Pete's goals in this journey were to walk 500,000 steps, a goal in which he met yesterday, and to raise $500,000, a goal which he met today. Olivia, back to you.
All right, thank you, Gretchen. You gotta love their attitude. Great story.